Our next presenter is from Cumbria Police, Megan Daniels, who's going to be talking about exploring the impact on an incel culture, digital world and real world harm. So over to you, Megan.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak. Today I'm going to be talking about incel culture, what it is, why it's growing, and the real world impact it's having on the wider society, and particularly in policing. This is an area that's begun to give a lot of attention over the last few years due to its online extremism and links to Vogue. Next slide, please. Just a little bit about me. I've been a response police officer for 3+ years, and I've got a keen interest in proactive policing and influence that social media and the internet have on criminality. Next slide, please. But what actually is an incel? So an involuntary celibate person under the nickname incel is a subculture internet community of heterosexual men alongside men's rights groups and anti-feminist groups who define themselves as unable to achieve a sexual or romantic partner, although they desire one. It was started in 1993 as an online support forum called Alana's Involuntary Celibate Project for people struggling with dating to vent. But over the next 10 to 15 years, these forums become dominated by men, and today the word incel is widely linked with extremist and misogynistic online subculture, and it's been linked to many violent attacks. It falls under the guise of the manosphere, which if you click once, you'll see some links to it. If you do next for me, please. It falls under the guise of the manosphere, and it's a network of online communities and discussions that promote masculinity, misogyny, and an opposition to feminism. The key belief system in incel culture is the black pill ideology, which stems from the movie The Matrix. The main character is given the choice of a blue pill, which keeps him delusioned, a red pill, which reveals the truth. But in the manosphere, they take the red pill, but black pill is different. Again, it's a more extreme version of the red pill. They believe that a man's attractiveness is fixed at birth, and a woman's standard around physicality and financial success makes a sexual relationship impossible. This fosters nihilistic views and creates an us versus them mentality, which further pushes men into these incel spaces away from family, friends, and services like ourselves, which they deem as blue-pilled. You'll often see a lot of it around pop culture or meme culture, and currently a lot of documentaries covering the topic. Next slide, please. But why is it growing? There's been a massive increase in internet usage in the last few years. It's in young adults, it's roughly doubled from 2007. It was 12 hours a week to 24 hours in 2017. And I imagine when the research is done again, based on my own screen time, that'll be doubled again. Internet culture, it's an internet culture ultimately, and most of their time is spent in these online spaces, which just reinforces these beliefs. The Home Office has identified that the internet is prominent in most cases of extremism. Out of Prevent referrals in 2024, individuals aged 18 to 21, 20% of them had incel concerns, which creates a spotlight on this online space. Another factor is rigid masculinity norms. The incel culture and the manosphere promotes itself as a self-help for men who want to uphold traditional values. They expect men to be emotionally restrained, independent, dominant, and sexually active, and to be physically attractive by Western standards. They tend to focus on these traits or lack of traits that they have, and this harms their mental state, their physical state, and their relationships around them. Black pill ideology often perpetuates these stereotypes with a hyper-focus on men's physical features, determining their self-worth. It has been linked to associations of aggression and violence. Mental health and loneliness, as everything, is always linked. With a self-study done with self-identifying incels, 39% of them reported the highest levels of depression, 43% reported the highest levels of anxiety, 1 in 5 stated they contemplate taking their lives every day for the past 2 weeks. 48% said they reported significant feelings of loneliness and isolation. And additionally, 33% have reported only having friends, which means 60% of them felt they couldn't say they had any friends in their life. These forums give community, and these self-identifying incels align themselves with the morals and ideals, even if it's not their own beliefs. Some have stated in the past that to identify as a feminist creates mockery. They show each other graphic videos to show how unbothered they are, and they use terminologies like Foids and Stacys when referring to women to humanize them. And this just creates a perfect storm, like an echo chamber, to go deeper into this mentality and further remove themselves from reality. If you can go to the next slide, please. Well, this just sounds like internet nonsense, and I'm talking a bit of this has been linked to many real world attacks. Elliot Rodgers in 2014 killed 6 people and injured 14 others. He is known as Saint Elliot and the Supreme Gentleman in incel culture. Alex Missan killed 10 people in Toronto. Chris Harper Mercer killed 9 people in Oregon. In the UK, Jake Davidson killed 5 people, including his own mother. Anwar said Dorich in 2020 planned to bomb members of the public based on his beliefs around incel. Next slide, please. Not only that, but there's an impact away from incels and the victims. There's a lot of real world harms that are currently ongoing. Incel rhetoric is becoming mainstream and it's leaking everywhere. Not every man will define themselves as an incel or on the pill spectrum and be aware of the specifics, but this misogynistic language and rhetoric is spreading through the internet and it's making a massive impact. There's been a rise of sexism online, for example, with 1 in 5 women experiencing abuse online, 55% saying they experience anxiety, stress, or panic attacks as a result. Stop Hate UK in 2020 have reported that there's been a 600% rise in misogyny-based incidents. There's also been a massive rise in schools as incel culture is found in millennials, with 39% of teachers saying that they witness student misogyny weekly. Ofsted reports have also reported from the years 2019 to 2022, there's been a 400% rise in incidents in schools of harassment and misogyny. These numbers probably underrepresent the issue as well, as students don't like to report to teachers. There's also been a massive rise in violence against women and girls in these same time areas, with a 37% increase from 2019 to 2023. And this likely obviously creates a massive increase in calls and service and demand for the police and safeguarding. Next slide, please. So what are we currently doing about this issue? At the time when I did my research, there was absolutely nothing. There's no guidance from College of Policing, which means if officers do want to research, they're going to go into biased websites and make their own narrative and their own interpretation of the content and what an incel is. It's impossible to track gender-based hate incidents because it's not nationally standardised. Only 5 forces actually record this at this time. And in my own force, in Cumbria Police, on our intranet, there's an emoji help sheet, but there's absolutely nothing relevant to frontline workers. Next slide, please. So my recommendations, first and foremost, is education for police officers. When doing my dissertation, absolutely no one around me before the documentaries on Netflix came out knew what I was talking about and thought it was quite weird for what I was doing. There needs to be more education around incels, given vocabulary and understand the safeguarding risks so we can empathise with these young men in these spaces. Incel black pill ideology often means they distrust professionals from police to therapists, as we are blue pilled, and will be dismissive of their black pill ideology. So first engagements with these men are really crucial. Effective interventions will acknowledge that they're not violent extremists, all of them, or bad people, that an intervention should be focused on mental health, well-being and inclusion. Ideally, College of Policing will have some sort of information packet or e-learning, which is a quick and easy way of disseminating information, but this should not be our only way of getting this out there. Police officers are ultimately kinesthetic learners. We need interactive workshops with subject matter experts to engage actively and internalise the concepts better. Whilst there is a projected £1.2 billion shortfall in funding, if modules were naturally standardised, this would enable across constabularies consistent delivery and ultimately reducing duplication and allow officers to internalise the material, leading to more likely positive outcomes and interactions with these individuals and being able to safeguard them, refer them appropriately. There needs to be a policy reform. If you just click once for me for the next slide, please. So there has been some change since I did my dissertation originally, just this last month. But so currently, gender-based crime is not tracked nationally. Nottingham Police were the first to do it in 2016. They found that in the first 2 years, 265 misogynistic-based hate crimes were reported, which was a 25% increase. This now led to another 5 forces doing this. Nottingham's Women's Centre reported that women felt safer both physically and psychologically. There has been some change in this, though. As I mentioned, there's a new offence called a Section 4B public order, which is when you cause someone harassed, alarmed, distressed based on a person's sex or their presumed sex. This is an amazing start, obviously, in terms of public order, but it doesn't cover things like assaults, harassment, etc. In terms of that, engaging with the schools as well, like I said, there's been a 400% rise in misogynistic incidents. 45% of teachers reported they didn't feel qualified to deal with these issues. But now there's a new programme, RHSHE, that's been rolled out as December 2025, which essentially the government are now ensuring that they're now teaching children how to tackle harmful ideas, unhealthy views about relationship and misogyny in schools. This guidance will not only just teach them about how to manage healthy relationships, but when they find online, they're going to teach them about involuntary celibates, misogynistic influences, but without also them feeling stigmatised. Another thing that we need to look at is potentially engaging with charities. Charities are community-based and less clinical, which tend to foster a sense of community amongst users, staff, and other members, which appeal to incels, as many of these individuals are first drawn to these online groups as to the community first by loneliness. Charities are more flexible in their support and offer different forms like text and online form, which means incels can remain anonymous, which is something that will appeal to them in this space, as it's a space they're comfortable navigating online. Users of mental health charities like Mind report greater satisfaction and enhanced recovery due to a human-centered and flexible care model. Currently in Devon and Cornwall police, you see the bottom bit with Andrew Tate there, they've seized a bunch of money based on an offence that he's committed, around £50,000, and the Office of Police and Crime Commission has double matched this, so there's now £100,000 going towards a new pilot programme called Cornwall Male Ally Network, and this initiative is aimed at supporting positive male role models, challenging harmful behaviours, and creating a safe environment for girls. These are all amazing steps, and I think it just shows how the fact that so much is coming in this year shows how relevant the issue is and how much we're quickly picking up on this rise and everything going around us, that this incel-flavoured misogyny is affecting everything around us. So in conclusion, incel culture is obviously it's evolved from a support forum to a complex online subculture, and it's been linked to misogyny, hate crime, and in some cases violence. It's driven by a combination of isolation, mental health struggles, social pressures, and online reinforcement. While only a minority become violent, the wider impact is clear through rising misogyny and harmful attitudes, all of which have contributed to a rise in sexism online, in schools, and violence against women and girls. Addressing this requires understanding the vulnerabilities behind it, while also challenging those harmful beliefs and improving awareness across policing and society. Because if the issues aren't addressed early, they become normalised and the risk for women and girls just increases. Next slide, please. So thank you for listening. If anyone's got any questions.
Thanks very much for your presentation, Megan. Has anyone got any questions, please?
There is one already from Richard Carr, if I would be able to answer that as well.
Yep, fire away with that one, Megan.
So they've just asked how the research has an impact in my force area. At this time, they've not changed anything about powers or policies, but I believe that they're currently making a library so our research can be accessible to within the intranet for officers. So things like my incel, if someone was typing incels, my research will hopefully come up. Not only that, through my own experience now with the job, I've met someone who is on that spectrum, and the initial encounter to where we ended up in custody started with the most horrible rhetoric being screamed in the street in the custody van all the way into the docks. But by the end of it, they were crying and explaining things that have happened in the past that's led them to this kind of rhetoric. And without that terminology, because my colleague was completely clueless to what was going on, I don't think we would have got to that place. And the next time I saw them, when they came to answer bail, they apologised and said they were referring themselves to help.